Michael Tracy has taken up a very interesting and almost unique position on the Jeffrey Epstein story, and then he has returned to what seems to be roughly the same position in response to the arrest and then release of the Israeli guy as part of a sting in Nevada, where the Israeli government official was accused of soliciting sex with a minor using a computer. The sting represented somebody as a minor. He apparently used a computer to try to arrange sex with this person. They arrested him. He, among something like 10 different defendants, was released, $10,000 bail. That isn't necessarily so strange, though I wonder about it. But the really strange thing is they didn't take his passport, and he, of course, fled to Israel. And then, even more horrifying, Netanyahu's office actually downplayed what had happened, not describing it as an arrest, said that he was interviewed, but no, he was arrested. And then he fled.
Used the word interviewed rather than arrested?
I don't know what word they used, but they basically said that police talked to him. They didn't say he was arrested and then released on bail, and they didn't arrest him. And he's not apparently...
Wait, I thought you just said they did arrest him.
The Israelis didn't arrest him, which, frankly, they should have. My feeling is somebody who's been accused of a sex crime with a minor or attempting a sex crime with a minor shows up in your country, you arrest that person and you get to the bottom of it and you extradite them if you can. You know, I think we do have an extradition treaty with Israel. But anyway, all that's beside the point. Michael Tracy took up a position that he is consistent about, in which he is doubtful about the evidence in the Epstein case, and he is doubtful about the evidence in this case, which admittedly we don't have all that much of. So anyway, here's his perspective, and then I will give my response.
You're right. People constantly ask me, why do you even care about Epstein? Why do you even care about the pedo panic? Why do you care about this like latest Israeli allegation fleeing from Nevada or whatever? I'll tell you why. Okay. I have a succinct answer that I've rehearsed for you. Here's why I care. You know what? I hate moral panics. I hate unchecked moral panics in particular. I hate mass hysteria that is unfettered and unconstrained because the media and politicians and everybody else are too cowed to actually engage on the substance and show why the elements of the moral panic or the mass hysteria are unfounded. I really hate that.
Okay. So I have a simple point here. I think it's important. The point is this. Michael Tracy has assumed his conclusion in his framing of this. I hate moral panics too, but he is effectively portraying this as a moral panic, while the question about whether or not it might be a moral panic is still completely open, and there's a whole lot of evidence that says it isn't. So I would just ask you this question. Did we experience a moral panic over trans ideology and the surgical and chemical transing of children? I don't believe that we did. I believe that we had an actual crisis in which a significant number of young people were induced to modify themselves in permanent ways with the complicity of science, of medicine, of their parents, of the schools, and that those people have effectively been maimed by our system, and even a single such case is an unforgivable tragedy. The idea that there were many of them means that the degree of concern was not overstated. It was not a moral panic. It was a correct moral revulsion for a behavior that should never have happened, and it was necessary to bringing it to an end. So the point in the Michael Tracy case here is, we have a question, Michael. How significant is this pedophilia in circles of power? If many of us are right about what we think we are seeing, then there is a good a significant amount of this, and it is playing a role in the governance of absolutely everything, which is completely intolerable. The fact that governments seem to be covering for it, and that there seems to be no mechanism for investigating it and just simply getting a full accounting of how significant a pattern this is a problem in and of itself. And of course, the nature of what many of us think was going on with Epstein is that it is a demonic system with an immune system of its own. That is to say, if Epstein was collecting a large video library of powerful people engaged in unforgivable behavior, then whoever owns that library can now call on the compromat that it has collected to prevent any and all investigations from getting to the bottom of it. So the real question is, do we live in a republic that is based on the idea of consent of the governed, or has somebody hijacked it using compromat? We need to know the answer to that question. You're entitled to hypothesize that this is a moral panic. And if you do, what you are effectively saying is, actually, I think there's a lot less of this stuff than people expect. I don't think the Epstein case is what people think it is. I don't think the case of the Israeli who fled is anything but an aberration. You can hypothesize those things, but then you're going to own it if it turns out that these cases are what they appear to be. And so anyway, I think just phrasing it as a moral panic is a mistake, because there are plenty of cases in which people's moral revulsion actually brings about, an end to slavery, an end to the transing of children, an end to genocides. It is a very useful piece of the human toolkit that has been named, like so many things are, after its pathological version. Right? Moral panic is the pathological version.
So social contagion is another thing that people call such things. And that also usually has a negative connotation. And certainly the social contagion of girls coming to believe that they are boys, as so well chronicled by Abigail Schreier, among others, is understood to have been absolutely diabolical by most people who are thinking about it. But just to repeat what you're saying, not all social contagions, moral panics, if you will, not all social contagions are in error, right? That we come to believe things sometimes rather than through first principles or direct observation ourselves, but from hearing the concern in our neighbors' voices or our family's voices, and feeling something in ourselves that goes, yeah, I'm not sure. Now, there was a moral panic over the unvaccinated. That was a problem, right? There was a moral panic over witches, right? There are moral panics over all sorts of things that are obviously wrong-headed and cause much harm and grief to people. But the fact that people can come to begin to think about things through hearing about those things from other people, that's actually how much of humanity has come to hear about things. So I think at some level it comes down to, actually, you can't have a static line in the sand and say, I will never acknowledge that something is possible if a bunch of people are suddenly thinking that it is, because you're basically saying, there's a couple types of errors in the world. There's type 1, there's type 2, and I'm only going to abide one of them. I'm just going to throw all of my weight into one, and I'm never going to risk the other. It's like, you have to be more fluid than that. You have to not have a static position, or else you are going to be extremely wrong some of the times. And I objected to it at first when you said it, like, if this is your position, you were talking to Michael Tracy here, then you're going to own the downside of that at the point that it is discovered that it's actually that, pedophilia isn't as rare as you think. Part of me thinks, I don't know that people need to own that, but your position basically is, if you're going to say, if it sounds like a moral panic, it must be wrong, then you do have to own the downside of that argument.
Yeah, well,
and I think I agree with you.
I agree, and I would also say,
I mean, you said it, so I would think so.
Well, I agree with your interpretation, and I understand why you had the reaction to you own the downside, because where I've used that before is in the pandemic, when we were accused of, you're killing people with your perspective, my feeling is no, we are having a discussion about what the truth is. And the people on both sides of that discussion get credit for it if they do it honorably.
Yes.
Because we discover through this process. But if you're going to tell me I'm the killer if the shots work, and I'm telling people, hey, you should be careful about that, then if they don't work and they're dangerous, then you're the killer. You own the downside.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, what it comes to is your position static? If your position is static and you are drawing a hard line in the sand, then the things that turn out to be true that are on the wrong side of the line from the one that you drew, you own that. Whereas if you are in good faith trying to discover what is true and your position changes and you resist efforts to make you feel bad because sometimes you realize that you were wrong and own that fact, then you have been trying to discover what is true, and that is what we all should be doing.
Right. So if you were effectively in this dialectic mode rather than a debate mode where you're trying to get to the truth, then the point is you're part of the process that discovers the truth. That's honorable, even if you're on the wrong side. My point to Michael Tracy, which is different than the point I made to those who accused us of killing Grandma,
Which we didn't, I want to say.
No, we didn't and wouldn't. The point is, if your hypothesis turns out to be false, if you phrase it as a hypothesis, you own the downside, which is, that hypothesis is falsified. Now I have to change my position. Yep. There's nothing dishonorable about that. It's an honorable thing. And it's exactly what you should want. Michael, I would bet that if it turned out that Jeffrey Epstein is what many of us believe he was, and that it is having an important influence on the practice of policy making, that you would want us to investigate that at full strength, and that you wouldn't be thinking of this as a moral panic. You would be thinking of it as the rest of us do. So anyway, we should want to get to the truth of that, irrespective of what it is. No matter which side of this issue you find yourself on at the moment, we should want to know how big a problem this is, what role it's playing, not only because that would tell us something about the magnitude of the problem from the point of view of the children who are having their lives destroyed. It's going to be some. Is it a huge number? Is it a small number? We need to know that. But we also need to know what effect it's having on our ability to shape the world. Consent of the governed is supposed to be what this democratic republic functions based on. And if it's not functioning based on that because somebody has corralled a kind of power that the rest of us can't even audit, that's a problem. So anyway, we should all want to...
separate, but like on different planes, equally important point.
It's arguably maybe even more important, because downstream of that would be things like wars that we shouldn't get into but can't avoid, right? So the number of people who are destroyed as the result of us not even knowing what form of governance we have is huge.
Yeah.
So, all right, all of that.